All right, moving on to item 5, 5A report on the January 2024 operations department. Damon. Uh-oh. Discuss weapons.
Good afternoon, directors.
So
It's quite a comprehensive ops report. So there are a couple unique items within the report that I think we can kind of focus more of our attention on that I think are really interesting. So we'll just jump right in here. Okay, so this is a service line install. So this is new service install in off Milton Road, Rancho Calaveras. You guys have seen these before. You know, we mark the water service line, we put tape, we put wire so we can locate that line in the future. So the image on the left here on the screen, you can see the tape. So water line below tape, and then the connection at the meter set. You see the meter box sitting there with the backfill of the AV over the line. Couple new services in the past month, which is always great. And you can see the final temporary patch.
That's an ominous looking shadow.
I thought it was a really good picture. You see the hard hat, but so we'll have conversations about paving and patch paving and temporary paving. So this is oftentimes what is getting final paved. So we might have 5 of these and then 3 by 3 squares all over Rancho Calaveras that we will kind of add up, so to speak, and then we'll call a paving contractor in to come get that work done. And so that's what you guys will see through the ops budget in the paving and repair aspect of the ops budget. So this is an interesting one, 2-inch main repair on Jenny Lynn Road, Rancho Calaveras. So we have a lot of these. This is that old Bluebell line. These 2 inches will come apart at the valve. And what'll happen is oftentimes we'll have to shut the bigger water main down to repair the 2-inch main. So if one of the things you're going to hear from staff, if you see them out in the field, is more valves are always better. So if we don't have to shut, 500 people off to fix a 2-inch valve, that's always a benefit to everybody. In this case, we had to shut quite a few people off in order to replace this valve. Kind of hard to see down there in the image on the right with this. I forget what compression coupling, and this image on the right, this Schedule 40 compression coupling just kind of blown off. You can see that connection to the valve there. And then we put a Romac in the image on the right, more of a stronger, more robust connection to the valve. And then backfill, and then the kind of a back away from the driveway apron of the home to, you can see kind of where that work was happening off the shoulder of the road there in Rancho. Water main repair. So water mains can do a lot of damage, as we know. So these are some really, I think, compelling pictures that show just kind of what failures can do to the asphalt and to the ground. Here at Antonovich and Silver Rapids, guys got in there, and what do you know? The water main, the AC main is sitting on a rock there, the original install. So you have this kind of stab over time that works its way through that AC pipe and results in this failure. And repair of AC is usually one of these full circle clamps with 6 or 5 bolts coupling or a repair clamp. And that's what did the trick here. And then backfill, it's always nice to see, so there's one of those F550 dump trucks, part of the enterprise lease to own program, a newer truck. Putting the base rock into the hole and then staff whacking it into compaction. And then this is the aftermath. So here's more of that temporary cutback or temporary asphalt. And you can see, our guys pretty much right on the mark when it came to the failure. The hole is right over the leak, and that's really good work. This one's really interesting. So a fire hydrant rebuild. So they've taken the bonnet off the hydrant and they're getting ready. I forget what that piece is called, that you can see the image on the left of the screen. One of the staff is getting ready to pry that that top off and there's a gasket under there. And so as they pry that off, they pull that off and they can replace that gasket and it gives you access to the stem of the hydrant. And at the bottom of that stem, it's really long. It sits down there in the shoe, well below the hydrant. Did I pass it already? No, I guess it's the next one. So you use this special tool to take that stem off and turn it counterclockwise, and then you pull out the hydrant shoe. And then oftentimes when you see these leaking hydrants out in the field, and somebody might reach out to you and say, hey, there's water boiling out of the ground in front of the hydrant. Well, it's usually because that image on the right, that ball, that shoe has some sort of obstruction, or it's kind of got a hole that's been scoured through it or on the side of it, and it doesn't seat properly way down below the fire hydrant in the ground in the piping. And so that's what has to be replaced. So that's what the guys are doing here. They dismantle the whole unit and then they pull that shoe and that valve, that stem out. And then there you go. That's the burr or the obstruction or the damage to the seat in the image on the left there. And you see it on the right also. Take that off and replace it. And then flush the whole apparatus before you put everything back together, because you might have broken a little chunk of something or other off in there.
How long does it take to take one of those things apart?
I mean, that, it depends on how easy it is to get that valve stem out, but that's a couple hour endeavor.
Now, is that just something we do upon a leak, or do we have those hydrants dated and maintenance?
So what happens with the fire hydrants, Rancho Calaveras folks are really good. So the Calaveras Consolidated will go out annually and inspect them all, and they'll do a little test, they'll pressure test, they'll clean them, they'll grease them. And then if they find some that are leaking, or we have a list, say a customer called, or we get a customer service work order, we'll usually get a couple together and then we'll schedule time. And we'll try to knock some out with the construction crew. So I would say it's every 4 to 6 months, we're gonna knock some of these out. And we're made aware in a couple different ways, through customer service, through our own guys noticing that there might be an issue out in the field, or through the fire hydrant inspections from the fire department.
And how much are they charging us now?
It's $25
It's
per,
still at 25.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
yes.
No inflation
No
with,
change. No change. And so this image, so, you know, folks that, our crews do a fabulous job of kind of meeting all of the demands of their systems, and they're challenging, right? So Rancho Calaveras, we're all aware of how many service lines are failing and how much work they do associated with that. But they're also carving out time to rebuild fire hydrants, and they're also flushing unidirectionally. And so what they're doing, the objective is to get the dark iced tea looking manganese out of the system before it ends up in folks' taps. And so that's really the objective, and it improves water quality, and it, you know, improves customer service and supply reliability also. And so what happens is they will isolate and focus the water flow through a certain main. Say they want to flush 500 feet of a 6-inch line, and they'll calculate the volume in that 500 feet of 6-inch line and calculate the velocity at which they can scour any of the debris that's stuck on the bottom of the pipe to get it out of there. And the result is this unidirectional flushing effort.
Does
So
that manganese tend to sit in our low spots, or
it does.
so we kind of know? I mean, we don't mess with necessarily the higher use areas that have a lot of flow. Is it a low
That's
flow,
true.
low elevation?
That's true.
Problem.
So we've done it both ways. We will focus on the identified issue problem areas, but then we've also had a conversation about, let's just start really from the treatment facility and work our way throughout the system, because you never really know. Sometimes you're surprised by how the distribution system works. And so a couple years back, they worked that way. They worked from the plant out. This is more of, they have an idea of where the areas are that they need to improve water quality, and they're focusing that flushing effort this go around that way. Moving up to Ebbets Pass. So, you know, it's quite a different challenge when it comes to repairing a 1-inch service lateral. You know, you're dealing with obvious weather conditions. And, you know, not that safety is not always heightened, but in this kind of situations, I think the mind of safety, everyone's a little bit more focused. And you can kind of see in the image on the right, you know, 1-inch service line that has a leak. And I believe this is at a curb stop. But you know, the work that goes into getting it repaired and dealing with the snow and everything can be take quite a while. And so there's the repair in the image on the right. It's hard to make out on the screen, but you can see USA marks. So obviously we were concerned about what might have been in the ground and worked to make sure USA occurred before the work happened. This is a mainline repair in Dorrington. So we have a Dorrington pump station that pushes water up to our big freeze tanks. And there's a 6-inch main right outside. And you can see that the tree here with all of the addresses on it. And you see the image on the right, just how full of roots that hole is, right? And so obviously trees want to find water, right? So the image on the left here, you can see, I think this is Bill Heinley cutting out all the tree roots, right? So we can get to the water main. And what happens is the spirit of Valentine's Day, right? So trees love water, so they like to wrap themselves around the water main. And they eventually just squeeze the water main until it breaks, right? So the roots are growing and they're finding the water and it's just, and so this is what happened. And then when the wind blows and those trees are rocking and those roots are moving, you can also snap a water line. And so that's what happened here. So a lot of work, you can see he has a small saw in his hand, is just focused on simply being able to get to the water line. It's so covered in roots. It's kind of hard to make out here in the image on the left, but you can see just a crack. The main is just fully cracked. And there's Bill after doing all his pruning work. You know, it's quite clean work. And so there you go, the crack or the shear break of the AC main, and then the full circle repair clamp with the 6 bolts. And so here's service line up on the pass. You know, obviously sometimes the service line can just shoot a lot of water out. And it's kind of an image of that. And you can see the vac down below with the pickup tube all the way up the hill, exposing that. This is that curb stop. Replacing that curb stop there. Quite a clean hole, you know, working in the wintertime. That's what everybody loves, is how nice and dry everything is. And, you know, just hats off to the guys. PRV maintenance. So pumping out all the water out of the PRV. You can look down below and you can see the apparatus. All of a sudden there's water spraying out. There's water spraying out of a coupling. And so the guys, you know, grab hold of some hose clamp and some neoprene and fix that temporarily so they can stop the leak. And then they put a pressure monitoring device on the pressure reducing valve and they monitor how it operates. And so hats off to the folks up in the distribution crew up on the pass right now. They're really doing a lot of work to understand how pressure is working up. There's 100+ pressure zones and PRVs in the past. It's a very complicated distribution system. And they're really working to understand the system and to make it less scary, frankly, so we can understand how it works. And
Are we still maintaining it at 125? Was that
so
the PRVs?
well, it depends. It
Oh.
depends on how, it really depends on the end user of the PRV. So you're going to adjust that PRV accordingly. So you might send less pressure out and it might be 125 down at the furthest place. The goal would be to send water out that's usable and to not over pressurize.
Right. I
the
know
process, right?
White Pines had that problem where
Yeah,
they had variables.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure Kelly has many, many stories, PRV work that's gone on. But they're doing a great job. This is what it looks like when you have to fill the generator at the sawmill. You have to take the side-by-side Polaris with the small fuel tank in the back and climb the mountain to build a sawmill generator. And so we're going to be using that here in the future to fuel trucks
How
and to
many,
fuel diesel generators that fuel electric trucks.
how many customers are connected to this particular,
Sawmill?
yeah,
Oh, a lot. I would say that's the heartbeat of Arnold in terms of
Really?
water supply. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's safe to say half, at least half. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, half. So half of the
You gotta
6,000 plus
do that.
up there. Right. Yeah.
And
Yep.
it needs to be replaced.
Yeah. The tank is old.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So here's some, an image of another 2-inch repair. So this failure just uncoupled and staff were able to cut out a nice clean section of it's like concrete and then get in there and make a repair. So hats off to them. They do great, nice, clean work. There you go. Working in close quarters, calm. Here's some interesting work that our West Point distribution treatment and construction crew worked on as they pulled out a bunch of very large rocks that the West Point Wilseyville project exposed, and they used those to create barriers at our property to inhibit trespass. And so did a lot of work with these nice big rocks and some old concrete that they had found, and they're doing a great job there. This is a repair on a water line coming from the Middle Fork. So this is a Y that conveys water from the Middle Fork pump station to the treatment plant or to the Bummerville Reservoir. And there's a secondary pump station. And so this failure occurred right near that secondary pump station. And you can see, it's kind of hard to tell in the image on the left, but it's not really a very well mechanically constrained Y. And in the image on the right is actually the new work. And you can see that ductile iron Y in the middle with the yellow mechanical couplings. And then you can see what are those called, gosh, they're slipping my mind right now. The hydro seals on the dark blue Hymax, yeah, in the dark blue on the right. And those things are phenomenal. They're 1 bolt and they just lock in and that thing won't move. And what's really interesting is, you know, you kind of have to be somewhat experienced in fluid dynamics to understand how this Y is going to work and how to, what we call kick it. So you're going to put a restraint in place. And in this case, our construction crew poured that concrete restraint against the Y to reduce the force of the water as it flows and it hits that Y in return. So hats off to those guys. They do fabulous work.
And there are times when our whole water service area in West Point depends on that intake.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's an important piece of infrastructure as well.
That's right. That's right. Erosion control, the Jenny Lind Water Facility, you know, last year during all the rains and starting again this year, we started to see some increased erosion. So the guys got out and rocked the whole site. It looks fabulous. Did a great job, cleans everything up. And really good work.
It's a nice.
Where'd you get that rock?
I'm not sure where they got that.
Yeah, it'll be right next door. It's
Yeah, right. Yeah. I would think so, but I'm not totally sure.
so.
Yeah. Sealing, septic
Hold it up
tanks.
from the valley.
It's always a challenge. So you have this lid, or this elevated lid, and our guys will go through and expose the top, seal any crack in that top and get that thing watertight. This is a project we're working on at Vallecito where we're taking all the paint, this paint is sloughing off this anoxic tank, and we're gonna repaint that this summer. Can't say enough great things about mechanics and the construction crew. So this, you can see the pipe rack construction, but this power tilt bucket, a replacement for that power tilt bucket was almost $20,000. And our mechanics looked at the power tilt bucket, which no longer tilted or moved or did anything. And we're like, oh, we can fix that. And so they fabricated those
Wow.
black painted parts to put that thing back into service. And that was a huge deal.
Nice.
Really great cost savings for the district.
Talented employees,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. And we also leverage the CAL FIRE crews who do a ton of work for us. So you can see here that they're moving a debris pile up at the Arnold wastewater facility. They're always grubbing and brushing. We're always putting them to work, and in turn, they gave one of our CPOs, Ron Rose, a nice thank you cup for everything. He tells those guys while they're out there working with CCWD, keeps them in line, does a great job. He has a lot of really good conversations with those folks. So hats off to Ron, he does a great job. So here, this one is really interesting. So we're reestablishing power at the La Quintana pond after about 10 years. So there was a fire out there, I'm going to say in 2014. the power, PG&E no longer supplied power to the district there. So this allows us to operate the aerator, operate the diffuser, hydro diffusers that evaporate the wastewater if we need those. This is really, really helpful for the district, and this is on PG&E's dime. So,
Why was that terminated?
well, there was a fire there, and I just don't know why it was never reestablished. So our folks out.
We we had that big rainfall, that whole era started a lot of stuff. I mean,
That's right.
when we were using the snow blowers or what you
Yeah.
call them, hydro work.
Snow blower, yeah, snow machines, basically, yeah.
Yeah, we
Right.
definitely,
Yes.
because that could certainly occur again.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, it's tip of the cap to our guys who are like, hey, can we get this going? Yeah, absolutely. Kevin actually worked with Annie from PG&E and she was on the ball too, so everybody,
Do we still have those machines?
we do,
Do we
yeah.
ever exercise them or can we now?
If you,
Make sure they're operational
Yep,
and stay
absolutely.
operational?
yep. Yeah. Custom VFD bucket install Huckleberry. This is part of CPPA grant that the district received to install new VFDs at the Huckleberry lift station. So this is our electricians did the work. And great project. And the equipment was paid for via the grant and installed. You can see the electricians, it's such a unique job where they install mechanical work and then programming that equipment and making sure it operates effectively. So they do a great job. Installation of a partial flume flow meter and then control panel replacement for a septic tank. So they can go from working on a district treatment facility to a septic tank control box in somebody's backyard with really compelling photographs to boot. This is another component of the Jenny Lind or the CPPA grant. So this is the Jenny Lind water plant. All LED lighting is going in, equipment paid for through the CPPA grant. And here's an interesting one. So this is we were having issues with the collection system receiving grease up in West Point. And so this is kind of what it looks like when our crews will dig a trench on either side of that pipe and they'll cut that pipe because they feel like they're not able to evacuate enough of that grease. And we'll actually hydro flush the collection line and pull out these tubes in the shape of pipe that are just grease from waste.
Does this happen close to particular businesses and then
Yes.
you will show them what?
Yeah,
came
oh,
out?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, hey, come take a look at this.
Right.
Exactly. Yep.
Because, some of us may not realize until you actually see it.
Right, yep. And so then we have to put everything back together. So we
Yeah.
take it apart, clean it, yep, take photographs, restore flow, put it back together. And our guys, they did a fabulous job here and we're able to avoid any regulatory compliance issues. So they did a great job. And that is Craig Canepa, one of our fabulous electrical instrumentation techs, installing those LEDs over at Jenny Lind.
I have,
Job.
I have a couple of questions on your report.
Yeah,
One of the things that I was really very impressed with is that you, CCWD and went down to the city of Lodi and it was an expert panelist. How does that,
yeah. So every once in a while, folks will reach out to the district and ask if we have any experienced staff that could participate in a panel interview. Or there's various things. And that's what in this case, it was an interview for a distribution worker for the city of Lodi. And the city of Lodi took the approach. It was really actually pretty interesting. It was, sounds like it was all internal candidates. And so there was one city of Lodi representative with HR and a representative from Calaveras County Water District, the city of Dixon, and I believe Merced. So folks from other utilities don't know these people from Adam were able to participate in the interview and then provide their recommendation to the system. So really, really interesting.
well, I
Good.
thought that was, really great to see and for somebody to participate in something like that.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
We should do that with some of our, the people that we're trying to hire and then steal the people that come.
Yeah.
That's where my mind was going. So I was trying to steal our guy.
Yeah.
But it is recognition, I think, for
Yeah.
the respect that the
Oh,
district has in the industry. But I think it's also, that's an interesting approach. You know, we regularly will bring in outside experts to sit on a panel for our own interviews. But I don't know, in my time at least, that we've done a whole panel of
Right,
external
right. Pretty interesting.
experts. So that's an interesting approach, something we'll think about. in the future.
Yeah, okay. You completed a site visit and assessment to the Metamont Shopping Center, and we're still working on that. And
Yes.
we will have a meeting to bring that all together.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, in construction, we are doing a slurry line meter read.
Correct. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
And
every month.
well, I was just really, amazed because the electrical and the construction, you had like 65.
The electricians are all over the place. And I edit, some of what is in there because, it's like some of the other departments are like, hey, we get stuck working on this thing for a week. We don't have 60 things. We have, you know what I mean? So it's not really a competition, but, and those guys.
Oh,
they
they're,
got some stuff.
yeah, they are all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Congratulations to them. Okay.
Damon, I've got a real quick question on your, back on page 9, there's 17 is underneath the photograph of that stem that extends down.
Yes.
Okay, there's an element in between there. It looks like a couple of, I don't know, threaded couplings or something. Is that a weakened point in that shaft?
That is the breakaway connection.
Okay.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, that's, I have experience of knocking one of those hydrants
Yeah.
off its pedestal.
And that's what broke, hopefully, right?
Well, the breakaway bolts did, but I wasn't.
Kept going, did you?
And, huh?
You just kept going and running there.
Oh, no, it was an interesting thing. It was up in the city of Folsom and wrapping this job up 4:30 in the afternoon. And as soon as this thing would look like Old Faithful geyser just squirting up. And every truck from the water district that was within 10 miles came and they put all those people and equipment on the bill. You should learn something from that.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. But thank you for this. This is really good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Guys.
Thanks, Damon. And thank you to staff, your crew.
We have public comment apparently. Who's online? Francisco again?
Yes, you're.
Go ahead,
truly.
Francisco.
Hey, Damon, you were going to produce some numbers for the water treatment volumes that you produce graphs for, so that it makes it easier to do some numerical analysis. And I don't see that anywhere in the package. Is that something that we need to request, or where is that production data?
One down on the last
So
page.
there's the totalized production is the last page of the report, but you want to see individual treatment facility production?
No, just there's no numbers, it's just a graph. So there's no way to do any kind of analysis of it without the actual numbers that make up that graph. I thought you were going to produce that graph.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah, I can provide a monthly total. Yeah, I'll get you that number for the next operations report. No problem.
Yeah, the reason is I think we kept production flat in the Prop 218 estimate, right?
That is a question that I'm not sure I can answer, but it looks like we probably did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
We didn't assume growth.
Right.
Right. So there's no comparison, is my point, to what we're doing versus what we said we were going to do in 218. But that's a different issue we can talk about offline. The other point I wanted to share with you is that we're working with Calco Fire and helping them get some funding for, their operations. And one of the questions that came up in some of our interactions with some of the residents is the remuneration from CCWD for all the hydrant inspections that Calco does is currently, like you mentioned, $25 hydrant. And we're recommending that be renegotiated. So that's a heads up to you.
Gotcha.
Because
Okay.
$25 doesn't cover the fuel it takes to drill one of those suckers out there and back, it seems like. And lastly, on Highway 26, who is responsible for letting you know that the hydrants are 2/3 of the way up with dirt? Is
So
an
that would be
issue?
the fire marshal Hamry. If there's
Okay.
an issue with a hydrant, fire marshal Hamry usually reaches out to the district.
Okay, I'll talk to Ryan. All right.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and you looked at the last page of the operations report in the agenda packet, right? It
Right,
does
with all the-
depict 2023. But it's production that's been consolidated for all the facilities. So you can see 23 through, what is it, 2016 or 2017 in there. So,
Yeah.
Very
16.
similar.
yeah, but I'll give you the totals and numbers also.
Yeah, that'll make it easier to do comparisons. And my concern obviously is how it compares to what we said we were gonna do with Prop 218 for this rate increase, because we're either on target or off target or what have you. And then we obviously have to look at what we said we were gonna spend to produce that, because that's what justifies the rates that we're all charging. So that makes it difficult to do without real numbers.
Yeah, got it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, there's more to it than just the gallons produced. It's connections, it's ratepayers. You gotta do both, because all this is gonna show is the consumptive part of that. And that's not the primary part of the rate.
No,
So
I
there's
know.
A lot more than just these numbers that goes into that figuring.
Right, no, I understand that. For example, in my situation with my very first bill, I used 40% less water volumetrically, but I was charged 112% of what I paid last year for more water. So the only way to get that reconciled is go to how many cubic feet of water did I pay for with the blended rate, which includes the volumetric portion as well as the fixed portion.
Well, you have the numbers on your bill, right?
That's how I calculated the amount of water I didn't use and the amount of money I was charged for less water. Does it make sense?
Not on a large scale, it doesn't to me, but we'll get you what you're looking for.
Yeah, we'll get you the numbers.
It should make sense on a large scale too, because I mean, you change the tiers, so the higher rates kick in a lot sooner. And you change the fixed rate, so that's up all the way regardless of where you are. So I was just trying to get an idea.
That sound like,
The higher rates kick in later than they used to, but I think we're off agenda here, so. we
Yeah,
should
we're off.
stop.
Yeah,
Okay, getting back to the agenda, do we have any other comments online? Okay,